Good afternoon from Ankara. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our panel discussion entitled The Projections for Libya's Future. We have a group of very distinguished speakers to discuss this topic. And also I would like to welcome our speakers as well. Dr. Juma El-Gamati, Mr. Hafiz El-Ghawel, and Dr. Murat Aslan. Welcome, all of you. As we are going through a very critical and curious phase in Libyan issue in general. We have a lot in our plates. Since roughly June, there are many breakthrough events. We seem to be slightly moving from the military realm towards more diplomatic, political and social realms. So in terms of the breakthrough events, we had Prime Minister Sarraj's announcement about his intention to resign. We have August the 21st, the ceasefire announcements by both Prime Minister Sarraj and also Aguila Saleh, the head of House of Representatives. And we also have talks between, let's say, lawmakers from both Tripoli and also Tobruk, facilitated by Rabat, as a complementary talks under the supervision of United Nations, which take place in Geneva. And also we have subsequent meetings as a result of Berlin conference in 5+5 formats. All these efforts and negotiations are targeting to form a unity government at the moment, and also there is one of the sticking points, maybe the most important sticking point is the oil blockade imposed by Khalifa Haftar in the east of the country. And finally, we have as a very significant event, protests in both Tripoli and also eastern part of the country. People protesting because of the long hours of electricity cuts and electricity blackouts because of the oil blockade. So, in order to unpack all these issues, I will turn to our distinguished speakers. Before going into the introduction of our speakers, I will make a swift announcement for the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you can address your questions via the comment section of our social media channels, and we will try to answer as many of them as we can after the 2 rounds of interventions by our speakers. So after this, I will give the floor to firstly Dr. Juma El-Gamati. Dr. Juma El-Gamati is a special envoy of Prime Minister Fayez Sarraj to Maghreb countries, and also he is the head of Taghir political party in Libya. Dr. Juma El-Gamati, thank you very much once more for joining us. I will ask you the following question. In the light of ongoing negotiations in Morocco, in Geneva, and also other efforts surrounding the outcomes of the Berlin conference, we see a lot of lining ups and also interest groups and camps. Under the light of these efforts, how do you see the future of Libya with regards to these different regional and global actors' interest in Libya? How will they shape the political landscape in Libya in the future?
First of all, thank you very much. Hello, welcome. Hello, and thank you to SETA. A big thank you to SETA for inviting me, and a big hello to all the colleagues, the speakers, and also the friends, and hello to all who are following us. I think it's difficult to cover the question in very few minutes, but I will do my best. Let's just say that as we stand today in September of 2020, we can confidently say that the war is over. The military track has failed. Haftar has attempted over the last 6 years, and then in April 2019 of last year, to actually wage a war against the capital Tripoli and take the capital and take political power by force. I think the steadfastness, the resistance which the GNA and all those behind the GNA showed has managed to push Haftar back, has managed to defeat him after 14 months. And obviously this defeat of Haftar, or this victory or military success by the GNA, would not have been possible if it wasn't for the support from a key ally, and that is Turkey. I think the Turkish support to the legal government, the GNA, the internationally recognized government in Tripoli, was absolutely crucial and a game changer, and it made all the difference. It changed the dynamics on the ground, and it helped the GNA to counter the Haftar military attack and the Haftar military coup attempt and push it back and defeat it. Haftar was at a certain time, he was only 5 kilometers away from the heart of the capital Tripoli. Now he's 500 kilometers away along the lines of Sirte and Jufra. So with confidence we can say that the military option, which only Haftar wanted and those countries behind him, has failed. So now the political track and the political option is back on the table again. And the UN, through ANSMEL and through their representatives in Libya, headed currently by Stephanie Williams, are back working hard to bring these sides together in a political dialogue that hopefully will lead to a final political settlement based on the Libyan political agreement that was signed in Skhirat in Morocco in December 2015. However, this political settlement, or this political agreement we all are striving to reach, can only succeed if there is an international will, if the regional and international players who are interfering in Libya are convinced now that there is only a political solution in Libya. If some of them, as I believe there are, still believe that Haftar should be there, he should be supported militarily, and he can still achieve his goals of total power, are still pursuing that option, then the political track will be hindered. And I talk about certain countries, especially the United Arab Emirates. However, let's assume that everybody now is supporting the political track, and we are back trying to achieve an accord between all the different political sides. Here we have to specify and make it clear that Haftar is not part of this option. Haftar cannot be part of a political solution, of a political deal, because Haftar does not believe in political deals. In his most recent broadcast, only a few days ago, Haftar has rejected all the current political initiatives that are going on. He is still adamant that there is only a military solution. However, he's now very weak. He's been marginalized, and gradually he's been sidelined and marginalized. And I think countries like Russia are now in total control of the military situation on Haftar's side. So maybe he might try to spoil the political track like he did in 2019 when everybody was going to Ghadames for a major political conference on the 14th of April, but Haftar attacked Tripoli 10 days earlier and spoiled that track. He might still try to spoil the new track, and any future dialogue conference maybe in Geneva or in Tunis or in Tunisia next month. But this is probably looking less likely now than it was in 2019. So what's happening with the political track and political projections? The efforts are going on. There were 3 unofficial consultative meetings between different Libyan sides. There was the one in Morocco between representatives of the Tobruk-based parliament, or the Aguila Saleh group of parliament, which is about 24 of them, and a representative from the Supreme State Council in Tripoli, headed by Mishri. That was an official consultation between the two sides. There was also a meeting in Cairo. It's just a visit by a 9-man delegation, unofficial, invited by Egypt, to see if they can open channel and dialogues with the western side of Libya, with the Tripoli-based groups in Libya, which is probably something new from the Egyptian side, and it indicates that maybe Egypt is willing to consider revising its strategy in Libya and not gambling everything on Haftar. The other meeting was in Switzerland, in Montreux. Again, a group of Libyans, about 12 or 15, unofficial consultation. They come up with some recommendations which will be put forward to the official political dialogue that should start around mid-October. Now, before that starts, there is on the 5th of October a meeting of the Berlin group. All the countries that participated in the first Berlin conference will actually have representatives meeting through a video conference or a teleconference on the 5th of October. I expect that that meeting will come up with some recommendations as well that will be put forward to the official Libyan political dialogue process that should start around the mid-October, either in Switzerland and possibly move to another location because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it might move to Tunisia or another country. Now, what is hoped to be achieved is actually to revise the Libyan political agreement that was signed in December 2015 and make some amendments to it, especially in terms of the composition of the presidential council in Libya. Currently, or for the last 5 years, we had a presidential council of the GNA, the Government of National Accord, made up of 9, although some of them have resigned. But that's, some people say that's too much, too many. They cannot agree on anything. This GNA, which has been headed by Sarraj, needs to be reduced down to only 3. So one of the issues that will be discussed is how can we reduce it down to 3, and who will be the 3 people that will make up the new presidential council. That's one issue. The other issue is to actually separate the government from the presidential council, so that we will have a separate prime minister forming a government that will take care of daily affairs of the Libyan people and the country, and run the country separately from the presidential council. For the last 5 years, the presidential council have been both playing the role of president and the role of executive power or government. And some people say we need to separate that. So these are the key issues. Now, let me in less than a minute just say that the possibility that Libyans will agree all these major steps and actually come up with names that are agreeable to everybody is not an easy task at all. There are so many factors involved. There will be countries interfering and trying to promote one person or another to that might serve their agenda. There will be yes,
Dr. Jamal, sorry, I have to interrupt you here. For the let's say elaboration of these points, maybe we will get back to these points in the Q&A session, but I have to move to our speakers now. Thank you very much for this very insightful intervention. You highlighted the fact that there can only be a success in these political tracks if only there is an international will. There are some for certain actors, but it is lacking on the part of certain actors as well. And the second thing, having Haftar as an interlocutor in these processes behind the political solution and political tracks, this was quite important. And also, in terms of military balances, Russia is currently in full control of the eastern camp at the moment. And what we are currently working on, and what we will possibly achieve, is a revision, or at least we aim to achieve, is a revision of LPA, London Libyan political agreements, the slight change in the composition of the presidential council, and the separation between presidential council and the government. At this point, I will turn to our second speaker, Mr. Hafid Al-Ghouel. Mr. Hafid Al-Ghouel is joining us from Washington, D.C. He is a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Institute within the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Mr. Hafid El-Houel, thank you very much once more for joining us. I will ask you the following question. We have been witnessing a fairly ambivalent position and policy by the United States. I wonder whether this will continue or change, also taking into consideration the upcoming elections. Will we see a change in US's policy, and what kind of a role US will play in the future of Libya? Please, the floor is yours. You have to unmute, Mr. Hafid.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great.
Okay. Thank you so very much to you and to SETA. It's a great honor to join you all today. The issue of the United States is a complex one and extends back in history for a while. The reality is the United States has never really saw Libya as a strategic objective or a strategic, or the United States having a strategic interest directly in Libya. You can see that throughout history, even after World War II, when the United States decided to help Libya financially by renting certain lands to build Air Force bases on it, especially the big one in Willis Air Force Base in Tripoli. And also Al-Wutia itself was built actually by the Americans. That was for a temporary period, and the United States was willing and happy, in fact, to leave those bases as soon as Libya, or as soon as the contract expired. Gaddafi, of course, took credit for that, but the reality is the United States was leaving irrespective of whether Gaddafi is in power or not. From a military strategic perspective, the advances in carriers and also in the new bases that the United States established in Italy and elsewhere in Southern Europe made its reliance on Libyan military presence quite irrelevant. The second item also that you can see is throughout history that even the oil dimension was never really directly affecting the United States. The United States wanted to control the oil markets as a whole, and Libya was a part of that. But the Libyan oil itself was never directly a strategic issue for the United States, because even during the President Reagan in '81, the United States cut off all imports from Libya and put Libya on sanctions, as everybody knows. Sorry, in 1986, not 81. Anyway, and for almost 15 years, the United States refused to import any Libyan oil. And that shows you also that the Libyan oil was never a strategic asset for the United States. The only really significance, historically at least, for Libya, for the United States, is that it is a part of a more strategic overall region, not necessarily Libya itself. Libya, as everybody knows, has the longest shore on the Mediterranean, so it has a major impact on the trade routes in the mid region. It's also a major sizable country in North Africa, and therefore it can also, if it disintegrates or enters into chaos as we have now, becomes dangerous for US allies, both Egypt and Algeria. Libya also has an impact on the Sahel countries of Africa, Niger, Mali, Chad. So in that context, the United States saw Libya as a strategic place, but its strategic importance was simply to not allow it to become a base for terrorism, for other troublemaking activities. So the United States now, actually one last time, is that even in 2011, the United States was never really at the forefront of the NATO or the UN actions in Libya. The United States never sent any actual planes to bomb Gaddafi forces. It simply provided logistical support for NATO, but nothing more than that. So the United States has always felt that Libya's stability or Libya's importance should be managed by the Europeans. It is considered the backyard of Europe, it felt that Europe is the place that should worry about the Mediterranean region. The United States' interest is really as a big power game, which is a global one, not specifically a local one. When it comes to terrorism over the last 20 years or so, and in Libya's case over the last 10 years, it became important from that perspective as a part of the overall US anti-terrorism strategy. It wasn't simply about Libya, it was about the whole region, as we know, both in Africa, in the Middle East, and North Africa. And that's why you've seen for a while that the United States only interferes in Libya directly militarily when it's bombing a very specific targets, but never really engaging in anything beyond that. At the moment, the United States' interest in Libya is really very weak for a number of reasons. One of them is, as you pointed out, it's the election. The United States has another 100 different major issues to worry about. Libya is not a priority for them. Of course, President Trump's administration is also another problem. It's an administration that sees the world in very transactional ways. Libya for it is not a significant economic prospect, which is one of the sad parts that Libya has failed to do, which is to engage the United States economically, which is the only way really to engage the United States. If you want US support, then you need to deepen your economic relationship with the United States, because that's really what becomes an echo chamber in Washington by these companies who have an interest in your country. We've seen that, for example, that's how the UAE built its relationship with the United States. That's how Saudi Arabia built its relationship with the United States. Once you put that economic foundation, then you can simply add to it the political dimension and strategic dimension. So for the moment, the United States will only be involved in Libya in a sort of, as officially described, neutral but active role, meaning that it does not care who rules Libya. It has no preference whether Libya is managed or governed by a democratic process or a democratic system or by a dictatorship. It's no relevant to the United States. What is important for the United States is to have a government that it can deal with and it can reach certain agreements with, especially in terms of fighting terrorism, also in sort of money laundering activities, things like that. But it's not necessarily something that they want to be involved with on how to govern Libya itself. That is completely outside the scope of American thinking. And that's why I keep on saying to Libyans, both official and unofficial Libyans, is don't count on the United States. The best you can hope for is you can get them to support you once you started the process. But, you know, not really particularly of absolutely urgent ways. Libya must understand now and in the future its size, its real importance in the Mediterranean and it's in global politics. It has to concentrate on its advantages. This not just moralistic kind of talk. I mean, I know it makes everybody feel good to say that the United States or Europe or whatever care about democratic values in Libya, but that's not true at all. The United States is used to dealing with dictators around the world. Their dictatorship is considered here in Washington in official thinking is a local issue. It's basically you talk to somebody and say, well, so and so is a dictator. Even during Gaddafi, it's like that's not my problem. That's the problem of the Libyan people. They have to deal with it. The most important, I think, significant way to influence Washington for Libya is to expand its economic engagement, but it's also important to rely on Turkey. Turkey has become a fundamental factor in Libya, both internally and also on a global stage. The fact that Turkey is very much involved in Libya and it's very much committed to Libya especially under the presidency of Mr. Erdogan, makes it important to everybody else, including Washington, because they know this is something that is strategic to Turkey. And Turkey is a major power. It's not a small country. Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Harvard, I have
Sure.
to interrupt you there. I have to move to the other speaker.
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for taking too long.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you for abiding by the time limit. Thank you. I will come back to you in the second round. Now I will. There are very important takeaways for us, especially you highlighted the fact that Libya has never been a major strategic interest for United States. That is one of the reasons why it is not performing a high profile in Libya, and there are historical elements to that, and the fact that United States is viewing Libya as not a country on its own, but as part of a strategic region, be it Africa, Maghreb, Sahel, or Mediterranean or Europe. It's United States' priority has always been preventing Libya to be a base for terrorism and also other illegal activities. And another aspect that was thought by the United States is Libya is a problem or issue to be dealt with by Europeans, not primarily United States. And the last takeaway is quite important. It is showing the way to move forward with the United States constructively. That is economy is the only way to engage United States. You have to build common interest and attract the interest of the United States on the realm of economics and business interests. Thank you very much for these analysis, and I will move now to Dr. Murat Aslan. Dr. Murat Aslan is a senior researcher at SETA Foundation and also a faculty member at Hasan Kalyoncu University in Turkey. Dr. Murat Aslan, thank you very much for joining us. I will ask you about the post-military phase in Libya and the current problems to be dealt with after the let's say cease of military clashes. So we have a loose amalgamation of militias, and how will these be formed in the format of a proper military, and what kind of a security sector reform will we see in the coming months and years? Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Bilgehan. It's an honor for me to speak on this issue along with Mr. Juma and also Mr. Hafed, because they are really experts and also they are Libyan. So it's difficult for me to say something while they are listening. But I will start with, not security sector reform first, because what I believe is that security sector reform is just a subordinate or constituent part of an overall effort. We conducted a research how we can, start a security sector reform in Libya for 2 years, and we abstracted a comprehensive report on that, and it will be published maybe in the coming week. So what we have obtained from this research is that first, Libya needs institutionalization because it's lacking in Libya. We know that the 2011 revolution was an overall attempt of grabbing the authority of the Libyan state by Libyan people. So there was a revolution. On the other hand, we witnessed that this revolution was left alone by international community. NATO bombed some strategic targets, though. Now Libyans were alone after the revolution. So the inherited legacy of Gaddafi term has become a point of reference point for Libyans while dealing with the problems. And it was really a problem afterwards. So what happened? There was a division in the society. So now we face another problem then, or maybe a solution. just before security sector reform, we have to deal with two issues in Libya. The first one is nation building, and the second one is state building. Nation building is important because if Libya is designated with an identity that's based on regions or cities or tribes, that means a unitary Libya is away from the imaginations. So, and the parameter for that is the freedom of, transportation, freedom of people in all over the country. If a citizen from Benghazi goes to Tripoli or vice versa, then that's good. Other than that means there's a problem. So we need a nation building over there just before the security sector reform. The second thing is that, and by the way, for nation building, there must be a compromise of all citizens to first have a common constitution as a reference point, and second, have a government that is elected in a democratic and normal way. The second issue is state building. Now, this is about institutionalization, because once you build up a state, there must be a system running smoothly that will satisfy the needs of the citizens. If not, the state will be questioned by the citizens. I mean, what an individual citizen wants: first, prosperity; second, security, or first security and later than prosperity. Doesn't matter, but you can't exchange them. So what I believe is that state building efforts right after the political process is important if we need to start a security sector reform in Libya. And for state building efforts affiliated with the security sector reform, we have some sub-branches, and we experienced it in Afghanistan, in Bosnia, or in another crisis-laden areas. First is administrative reform. The second one is judicial reform. Third is development opportunities for all branches of the community, and social compromise, and also affiliated with them, security sector. So if you have 5 different branches of a state building effort, security sector becomes a precondition if Libyan case is taken. The question might appear as what type of institutionalization in Libya? I think the question is not that much complicated. We know that first issue is by building organizations, but with appropriate regulations, and also by the help of technology, that the initiative of individuals are, just taken apart from the system, because there must be a smooth running system based on clear rules. That's the essence of building up a system. So this is what Libya needs for an efficient security sector reform in Libya. On the other hand, let me just, have our audience be aware of one issue. If the architecture is not functioning that much, that means there will be gaps. And whatever the country is, doesn't matter, these gaps will be filled by illegal formations. It may be either in the form of militia, or organized criminal gangs, or terror networks, or somebody else, like power brokers. So I think the system must not allow any probable gap. So that's the essence of the overall, reformation in Libya. And that's for sure. We will have challenges like Haftar, because we know that if the gap exists, the people or individuals who quest to have more power will try to dominate the political environment. And that was what Haftar did. And if individual or a societal group enjoys a type of external support, that means they may succeed. So that was what we had witnessed in Libya. So affiliated with all these factors, security sector reform is not a dream for Libya. As far as political process is achieved, a constitution is approved by the Libyan people, and a system is built up by means of a comprehensive program. That means security is just a step forward that Libyans can handle. So that's all from me. I want to give some more time to other speakers, and by that way we can develop the discussions.
Dr. Murat Aslan, thank you very much for a valuable intervention. Again, there are really important takeaways. Before security sector reform, you mentioned that there is a general need of institutionalization because certain ills of Gaddafi era has been inherited in contemporary Libya. And likewise, before the security sector reform, we also need a general nation building and state building efforts. And as a basis of all these prospective efforts, we need a constitution based on a wide scale political consensus between different Libyan parties. And another natural, let's say, highlight of the ongoing developments, whenever there appears a kind of vacuum, those vacuums will be filled by illegal formations. So we need proper formal formations based on consensus and understanding in the future. So with this, we have finished the first round of our panel discussion. Now I'm getting to the second round of our panel discussion. Dr. Juma El-Gamati, I will again turn to you for the second round. I want to ask you about the future of Turkish-Libyan relations and what kind of a role Turkey will probably or possibly play in Libya's future. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Is the sound clear?
Yes, great.
Thank you very much. I think that's an absolutely crucial question, and it's a very important question. The relationship between Libya and Turkey and what future holds for that relationship. Let me start by stating that in 2011, during that February revolution, over about 7 or 8 months, the Libyan people succeeded in removing the Gaddafi regime. They found themselves in total vacuum. There were no forms of strong state institutions, especially to do with security. And Dr. Aslan talked about security sector reform, which is crucial. But the Libyan people found themselves in a security vacuum, which unfortunately was filled by civilian military groups. Also, the countries that came to the aid of the Libyan people in that year, mainly the UK, USA, and France, actually did not help the Libyan people fill this vacuum and start the process of institution and state building. Those countries almost walked away. They only wanted to get some business for their companies, and then they just walked away. So we have been for the last 9 years suffering from not being able to meet this challenge. The challenge of stabilizing Libya, of building institutions, especially security institutions, so that other forms of state institutions can be built and state building commences in earnest. Now, in 2020, we almost had a different challenge, a similar challenge, sorry. Tripoli was attacked. The whole concept of Libyans building a civic, constitutional, democratic state was attacked by Haftar, who wanted to take us back to the days of military rule. But who came to the aid of the Libyan people in 2020? It wasn't the USA or UK or France. In fact, France this time was on the other side, helping the attacker, the aggressor on Tripoli. So the country that came to the aid of the Libyan people is Turkey. And this is no surprise. because this is not the first time as well. The Turkey-Libya relationship, the relationship between the Turkish people and the Libyan people is deeply rooted in history. It's a very old relationship. It goes back to 470 years. In 1551, Tripoli was occupied by the Knights of St. John, and the Libyan people sent help messages to the Ottoman Empire, Suleiman Qanuni, who sent forces, navy forces, to help the Libyans liberate Tripoli from the Knights of St. John. In 2020, the Turkish government sent military help and aid to help the people of Tripoli defend themselves against an aggressor supported by the Emiratis, the French, and the Russians. So now, does Turkey walk away again after Tripoli has been stabilized, or should Turkey stay and help the Libyan people deal with the original problem they faced in 2011, which is how to fill the vacuum, the security vacuum, how to build institutions, and how to start the process of state building? This is very crucial, and I believe strongly that Turkey should not do like the UK, France, and the USA did in 2011 and walk away. Turkey should stay with the Libyan people and help them along. And why? Because this time it's different. Turkey and Libya is not like France and Libya or UK and Libya. Turkey and Libya is a perfect fit. They complement each other because we have common history and common culture. Our relationship is deeply grounded in common history and common culture. We can actually, there is almost a bridge which we can extend down from our common history to a common future together. So what can Turkey do for Libya? What can Turkey offer Libya now that the military option of Haftar and his backers has been defeated? Well, Turkey, first of all, can help the Libyan people straight away with dealing with the urgent crisis of the power problems. There is a major electricity problem in Libya now. So Turkey can help us with that straight away. So this is what I call a quick win. This is a quick help that will be highly appreciated by the Libyan people. Secondly, what can Turkey do and help Libyans with? It can help Libyans and Libya stabilize. We need stability, security very quickly. Only this morning there have been fighting that broke out between military groups in Tajura, 20 kilometers east of Tripoli. That kind of violence need to be stamped out. We need to stabilize the country and make the Libyan people feel that they are secure. So Turkey can help us with that, partly through the SSR, the security sector reform, which Dr. Aslan talked about. Turkey can help the Libyan people now with the political process that's going on, that will start officially next month in Geneva or somewhere else, because there will be other countries who will try to impose a certain agenda. The Turkish political clout and Turkish pressure on those countries, it will be important to achieve a balance and make sure that whatever political agreement we reach is actually a fair agreement. It's in the interest of the Libyan people and the interest of the future of Libya, and that it guarantees that Libyans are heading for a civic government, that they can actually go for elections and start the state building they wanted. They want a constitutional civic government, no military rule. They want democracy, they want elections, they want rule of law, and so on. So definitely Turkey can help with the political process through its relationship with the regional and international players. After that, certainly also Turkey can help us with the political process that will actually lead to elections as soon as possible. All Libyans, the great majority of Libyans today, if you ask them what do you want, they say we want to achieve a new constitution, a permanent constitution, a democratic constitution, and elections as soon as possible, so that we can choose the people who rule the country and get rid of the current ones who have been there almost 9 or 10 years, and most of them are corrupt. After that, what can Turkey do, or how can Turkey help the Libyans? Definitely, it can help us with institutional building. SSR is very important, rebuilding the army, the police, all the security agencies, but other institutions as well. And Turkey can help with the overall process of state building, which Dr. Aslan mentioned. So these are the things which Turkey can actually offer Libya and the Libyans and can help us with, but this can only be achieved if there is a long-term, strategic, visionary relationship between Turkey and Libya, almost a strategic alliance. And let me reiterate again, this strategic alliance, which could be for many, many years, decades to come, is well grounded and well rooted in a common history and a common culture. And so Turkey, unlike other major countries, Turkey will be welcomed by the Libyan people, and it will be accepted by the Libyan people as a partner who would help us. Now, in turn, what does Libya offer Turkey? What is Turkey going to get out of this strategic relationship? Obviously, the first thing that Turkey benefited from is the maritime agreement. I think that was very important in the Eastern Mediterranean. That agreement was beneficial to both Turkey and Libya, because Libya also gained sovereignty over new areas of the Mediterranean where Libya can explore for energy, for gas and oil and so on. What else can Libya offer Turkey? It can also offer Turkey being a political ally. Turkey needs any political ally it gets in an area, in a Mediterranean region, which is very hostile to Turkey. Also, Libya can be an important gate for Turkey to strengthen its ties with the Maghreb region. The Maghreb region is very important. 5 countries, 100 million population. And Libya can offer Turkey a gate into Africa. And I think Africa is the new coming up market that is crucial for international company and for Turkish companies as well. Okay. And lastly, and very important and crucially, Libya can offer Turkey the option or the opportunity to help with reconstruction. Libya is going to need reconstruction in every sector and in every field. I reckon, and many experts reckon, and including people like my friend Hafid, who work for the World Bank and others, that in the next 20 to 30 years, Libya will need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to reconstruct and build everything: roads, bridges, airports, hospitals, schools, universities, healthcare, energy care, transport, tourism, solar energy, so many sectors and clusters that need to be built so that Libya can utilize its huge natural wealth to become a very prosperous and successful country in the region. So all these things are opportunities for Turkey as well to explore in Libya. So the relationship is mutually beneficial. It's a strategic alliance. I hope that it's an alliance that will be for many, many years and possibly decades to come. It's a perfect fit, and it's well grounded and rooted in history and common culture.
Dr. Juma, thank you very much for your very thorough intervention. There are many, again, significant takeaways. You mentioned that the vacuum in the official formats have not been filled by other actors such as the United States, the UK, and also France after the 2011 revolution. And the attempt to move the country back to military rule by Haftar was only repelled by the help of Turkey, not the more major powers such as US, UK, and France after 2011. And as possible areas of contribution by Turkey, you laid out state building and institutionalization of Libya. Especially, you singled out energy sector and electricity and natural power plants. The energy infrastructure you mentioned, in which Turkey could contribute to Libya. And also you mentioned security and stabilization, another area which Turkey could contribute to Libya. And also you mentioned the political process, especially the elections, conducting the elections in the future. And in return, you also mentioned what Libya can offer in this partnership to Turkey. And you mentioned being the gateway to Africa and also the Maghreb countries, and also the prospects of the reconstruction and its benefits to Turkey. Thank you very much once more. And I will move to Mr. Hafid Al-Ghoual for my second question in our second round. Mr. Hafid, there are a lot of efforts and jockeying revolving around the oil blockade, lifting of oil blockade, and also the future share of oil revenues. It is the gist of the power struggle at the forefront. So how do you see this issue? How do you think this will be solved in the future? And what fair distribution means, and what would be its implications in the near future of Libya? Please, the floor is yours.
Let me start off by emphasizing, as well as my friend Juma, the importance of the Turkey-Libya alliance. I think it is fundamental and extremely important. I think it is rested, and it can rest in a very deep historical, cultural, even social. I mean, there are so many, I can't give you a number, but so many Libyans of either directly Turkish backgrounds or through intermarriages and so on. I mean, my own great-grandmother is Turkish. So there is a real natural container here and ground for a much deeper relationship. I think the most important way to do this is also, again, through tying economies with each other. And I think this relationship should go beyond any current governments in either country, but it should be a much more fundamental relationship than just agreements between two governments. About the oil issue, the basic conflict right now, as everybody sees, is that you have here a group of mercenaries. I mean, it was very clear that Haftar doesn't have the power to do anything except through the mercenaries he has recruited. Even when it came to Tripoli, the minute the mercenaries were pulled back, his entire sort of imaginary army collapsed, and in a matter of days. The only way he is still in certain Jufra is because these mercenaries stopped there. And they stopped there not because of Haftar. I don't believe Haftar really controls anymore the Russian mercenaries. I think they used him to enter into Libya, but I don't think they are willing to take his orders now. They stopped there because of Russia. Russia is the one that decided that. Russia so far has not paid any price for its intervention in Libya. Even the cost of the mercenaries has been, as publicly stated and reported, is being paid by the UAE. So Russia did not do anything. The Russians, until today, still insist, at least through their official channels, including the foreign minister, their ambassador to the UN, that there are no Russian troops in Libya. But everybody knows, of course, that the Wagner Group is a part and parcel of Russia's sort of global strategy. The strategy for Russia in Libya is not just about Libya. It is a much more regional and global strategy. Libya is one of them. I think a great deal of it centers, I mean, we've seen Russia in all kinds of countries, from Iraq to even Afghanistan to Iran to Syria and so on. And they've established a foothold in Syria that seems to be permanent on the shores of the Mediterranean. I think their presence in eastern Libya also gives them a chance to be straight on the East Mediterranean. I think that's the center of Russian thinking, the East Mediterranean and the gas issue. In that area, I think both Russia and Turkey have common interest. Russia does not want a competition for its own gas supply to Europe coming from the East Mediterranean. And Turkey, of course, also insists, and it's right, I guess, insists that it cannot be excluded from the East Mediterranean oil exploration and alliances. and that it needs to be included. So both countries, I think, have an interest in that is close to each other there. Two other remarks I want to make about the Russian presence in Libya. One is that the fact that Russia still insists officially that it has no troops gives two signals at the same time. One is that Russia still maintains a way back, sort of, if it reaches an agreement or it gets what it wants from Turkey and from Libya, and also to some extent from Europeans. I mean, Russia's interest centers around Crimea, but Syria and other issues, gas and so on. So it needs some kind of a deal. But it maintained for itself a way to get back in Libya by saying, we're not there. These are private companies. And that, in a way, gives them a cover that if they decide to withdraw, they could always say, it has nothing to do with us. That's an issue for companies. It also gives a signal, I think, but Turkey has not taken that signal. And it is what happened also in Syria, which the Americans did, is that if anybody wants to bomb the Russian mercenaries in the central part of Libya, Russia cannot claim that that was an attack on itself. And therefore, it is almost a green light to any country that's willing to take strong stand against them. They have unfortunately managed to drag Egypt into this mess. And they have sort of pushed or made or enticed, whatever word you want to add, President Sisi to declare these kind of really ridiculous red lines in the middle of Libya. That actually, I think, is not only counterproductive when it comes to Libya, but I think it will also backfire on Egypt itself. I am convinced that Egypt cannot enter into a military confrontation in Libya, and most especially a confrontation that involves Turkey. There is no way Egypt has that capacity. I mean, Egypt is much larger in terms of population than Turkey, for example, but its economy is completely insignificant when it's compared to the GDP, for example, of Turkey, or even the defense industry in Turkey, or the technology that Turkey brings into these issues. So it's all a bluff. But the problem with it, it's actually damaged a long-standing historic and cultural agreement, if you will, a social agreement, not written between governments, but between Egypt and Libyans, that Egypt will not ever interfere in Libya in any way or damage Libya. I think the fact that they took the side of Haftar has done a lot of damage to the reputation of Egypt and to the trust of Libyans with Egypt. I hope with all my heart that Egypt comes to its senses and reaches an agreement with Turkey and also with the Libyan government, especially since Egypt can achieve everything it wants. There's nothing Egypt is asking for that cannot be achieved diplomatically.
Okay.
So I think this is a mess that's going to last for a while, unless Turkey decides, like the United States did in Syria, to bomb the mercenaries, to bomb the Russians out and force them out. And say, well, okay, if Russia doesn't think these are its troops, then they are a fair game.
Mr. Hafiz, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
I have to interrupt here. Thank you very much for your take. It was important to bring up to our attention that Haftar is not, in any sense, in control of Russian mercenaries at the moment. And there's another important aspect to be remembered, that Russia did not pay for its venture in Libya, not at all. And you mentioned a common interest between Turkey and Russia when it comes to the natural resources distribution in Eastern Mediterranean. And finally, you mentioned how unlikely Egypt's intervention on Libyan soil. Thank you very much. And now I will move to Dr. Murat Aslan. I want to ask you, Dr. Murat Aslan, there is a frozen front line along with the coastal city of Sirt and Jufra Air Base. And how likely do you think this front line will be activated if the political tracks and the ongoing negotiations fail? And what will be the implications of reactivation of that front line in terms of the formation of a military landscape? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. First, let me respond several questions to answer this question. The first one is why Sirt-Jufra line is important. Actually, it's an imaginary line that is created by Egypt because they announced that it's a red line and not to be crossed by GNA. But the importance first, it can be derived from the oil resources at the southwest. That means oil crescent, because the one who controls oil in Libya will control the overall revenue of Libya, because Libya is a rentier state. That's a reality. So once Haftar loses, Sirt has to go back to Benghazi, and that means this is the end of the Haftar's presence, and also maybe Akila Salih's, because he is heavily affiliated with Haftar. So this is the first issue that we have to be aware of. The second issue is geographic location, because if you take the shape of Libya, it's at the extreme south of Mediterranean Sea or Libyan coast, and you can easily reach to south from the port. So if you just review the desire of France, for instance, they want to have a hand at the south of Libya. That's a fact, because they are dependent on reaching to the Central African countries. And at the meantime, there's an intense smuggling activity coming from Chad, maybe gold mining. And France is really interested in these smuggling activities. So Sirte-Jufra line is the shortest range between the African countries and the Mediterranean coast. Another issue that we have to take care is Jufra. Jufra has an air base that is the biggest in Libya, and it was built by Russians during Gaddafi regime, and it's covered by the mountains, and it has 3 entrance points, and the one who controls this air base will easily control the overall Libya, because you can base your aircrafts over there and can reach the remote distances, because Libya is really a big country. So if you take Sirt, Oil Crescent, and Jufra, the one who controls it actually controls revenues and will have 2 hands at the throat of Libyans. Another issue, I think that's important, the presence of Metali Salafis, because we know that Sirt was handed over to Haftar by one of the brigades located in this city, and with no fight, because Metali Salafis were in deep relations with the Saudis, and who had positioned themselves with UAE. So the Sirt issue is also affiliated with this Salafism, the presence of Salafism. But I think we should care the preference of the Libyan public living in this area. Okay, second question. We know that GNA had, attacked to the coastal cities towards Tunisia, El Houtia base, south of Tripoli, Tarhuna, and Beni Walid afterwards. But why GNA stopped before Sirt? There are several reasons for that. The first one is that there was a heavy loss of GNA soldiers by the Russian attack towards them. I think GNA had lost 54 soldiers over there. Second thing, I think they had to reorganize themselves before Sirt, because they had moved a lot in the western part, so they had to rearrange their structures, maintain themselves, and also there are some logistical issues to be cared. But when they stopped, Egypt was actually intervened, you know. Why? Because if they pass this area, the Benghazi will be in the hands of GNA, and this is totally against the interests of Egyptians. We know that UAE heavily invested to Egypt, Haftar, and also, you know, coordinated all incoming military transportations by means of an airliner of Kazakhstan government. That means it was a private company. So they operated at least one flight each day, either through you know, Jordan or directly to Egypt and later than Libya, or sometimes they landed to Benghazi. So once Haftar's forces are repelled from this area, that means UAE and Egypt will lose it, other than Russia and also France. So what does that mean? That means there will be no agenda or a lost agenda in Libya. The second issue, everybody asks the memorandum of Turkey and Libya on exclusive economic zones in Mediterranean Sea, delimiting the maritime zones. Well, it's a legitimate agreement with the legitimate government of GNA, and very important in defining the future of the conflict. Because once Haftar is persistent at the east of Libya, now Greece, France, or some other countries, and the USA is one of the candidate one for that, now will you know, claim that Haftar will be at the east of Libya, claiming at an autonomous region, and the agreement is invalid because the agreement takes coasts of both countries, which are positioned at the east of Libya and southwest of Turkey. So what does that mean? Now, Mediterranean politics will intervene. So Sirte-Jufra line is the defining point to, you know, have this agreement be invalidated. Okay, the third question now comes: if there will be a campaign towards Sirte and Jufra in the coming period. I think it depends on the political process. If it is achieved, I mean, constitutional referendum and political elections may be realized, and there's a stable government reigning the overall Libya, then there's no need. But if Haftar resists and denies the political commitments of the overall Libyans, then there's a problem. If Haftar stays at the east of Sirte-Jufra line, and if the political process fails, that means Libya will be divided in a de facto way. So it's unacceptable for GNA, because the oil revenue coming from this area and from the southwest of Libya, Sharar and Fil oil fields, they are the only income of GNA. Okay. So I think it will be impossible for GNA to accept such an arithmetic. So what I believe is that it depends on political process. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan. Sorry for interrupting. It was important to mention the imaginary nature of Sirt and Jufra frontline, and how advantageous a gateway it is for logistical and strategic terms to reach Sahel and Greater Africa region. And the likelihood of reactivation of Sirt and Jufra frontline is depends on the performance of political tracks. If constitution cannot be established and the elections cannot be achieved, then it is likely that the front line will be reactivated. Thank you very much. We already accessed our time limitation. Now we will have a short Q&A session, but we won't be able to answer all these questions addressed by our audience. So, Dr. Juma Al-Gamati, I would like to start with you. There's a question directed to you.
what role do you see for Maghreb countries, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco in Libyan issue, and for the possible and peaceful resolution of Libyan issue, especially political contribution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start by saying that the Maghreb region, the 5 countries, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania, have a common identity, almost like a sub-identity, which is the Maghreb identity, a common culture. It's not just being region, it's not just being neighbors and an area which is crucial in the world, very strategic location in North Africa or northwest of Africa. The fact that the 5 countries, 100 million population, huge natural wealth on the Mediterranean, this region has a great future if it comes closer together. Therefore, whatever happens in Libya impacts directly on the Maghreb countries, especially the neighboring Tunisia and Algeria, who have common borders with Libya. So the stability and security of Libya impacts directly on the security and national security of Algeria and Tunisia, and also impacts on Morocco and Mauritania as well. So Tunisia and Algeria have tried to help Libyans come together and achieve a political solution, and through this political solution maybe achieve stability. But I think other interfering countries from the east, the Emiratis, the Egyptian regime, France, Russia, and other countries, interference have been very detrimental, very negative, and it almost offset any effort that has been made by Tunisia and Algeria, especially, and also by Morocco. Although Morocco succeeded in hosting the political dialogue in 2015 and achieving the LPA, the Libyan Political Agreement, signed in Skhirat, and I was one of the signatories there. Now, Tunisia is a very weak country economically, and it's very fragile politically. It has not stabilized yet since 2011, although it had progressed quite well along the state building and democratization. But still, there are political forces within Tunisia who are loyal to the previous regime, Ben Ali regime, who are loyal to France, and who are susceptible to influence from the Emiratis, and they don't always allow any Tunisian government in the last 9 years to actually help Libya stabilize. They have sympathies with Haftar, and that is a negative factor within Tunisia. Again, the Tunisian political clout is much weaker than, for example, Algeria. Algeria is a major country, almost 40 million population, strong army, almost 1,000-kilometer common borders. So Algeria can play a much greater role, and I think Algeria is trying to. Algeria was invited to the Berlin process and is now coordinating with many regional players to help progress the political process forward. So I would say that Algeria is the single one that can play a crucial role to help Libyans stabilize their country, although Tunisia, Morocco, and Mauritania can also contribute as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jamal Gamati. And I will direct the other question to Mr. Hafez Al-Ghawal. Mr. Hafez, there is a question directed to you. As you know, United States has not been successful in curbing the destructive policies or effects of United Arab Emirates and Egypt. Both are very strong allies of United States. Do you think there will be a change in case of Joe Biden's presidency in the upcoming elections? Please, floor is yours.
I think yes, to some extent. I think Joe Biden will probably go back to the Obama policy on Libya, which was able to stop the UAE from entering into Libya. And actually, President Barack Obama sent a delegation from Washington, specifically after the UAE bombed Tripoli in 2014, or parts of Tripoli, to give them a very clear warning to stop it. And that actually stopped after that until Trump came about. So yes, they're going to try to do that, but it's important to understand again that you have to. Politics is never white and black and white. and nor are there specific interests or relationships. You have, on one hand, Libya, which has very, as I said earlier, very limited political, strategic, military, and economic influence on the United States. And then on the other side, you have a country like the UAE or Egypt, which they have significant importance for the United States. The volume of economic activity between the United States and UAE is massive. Now the agreement with Israel also has won the UAE great deal of goodwill in Washington, despite the fact that it's a very questionable agreement. But as you know, in Washington, if you are a darling of Israel, then you are a darling of major parts of the country, of at least the congressional groups here in Washington. So it's very hard to say that the United States will take a very hard stand against the UAE or Egypt, because they represent far more importance to the US, both economically, strategically, and militarily than, for example, Libya does. So that is the balance that any new American administration has to play, is how far can they go to pressure these countries. I personally think these countries will not stop, especially the UAE. Egypt, you can probably come to an understanding with. At the end of the day, Egypt has institutions, has longer history. It's also a country that is deeply influenced by Ottoman background and Turkey. And I think Turkey can probably reach an agreement with Egypt in some ways. The trouble is with the UAE. The UAE is run by one man, and it is based on ideology. The worst kinds of leaders in the past have always been ideological. And this one man is completely convinced that his biggest enemy is Turkey, and what Turkey represents in terms of its centrality to the Islamic world. He accuses Turkey of all kinds of things that are completely inaccurate and historically complete nonsense. But he is devoting all of his money, and it's massive, to try to wage this campaign. He's also interjecting. I mean, Mohammed bin Zayed has interjected himself even in the East Mediterranean. I mean, it's completely nonsensical. It's like bringing Zimbabwe as a part of the Mediterranean, alliance. So in many ways, the problem is the UAE. And how do you reach an agreement with a country that has no institutions? It's dependent on one man and his personal agenda, nothing more than that. So I'm not sure Washington is willing to push that much, but I think Turkey is the country that can make it clear to somebody like Mohammed bin Zayed that there is a cost to what he's doing. Because so far the UAE has not paid any cost at all, not even political cost. So it needs to feel the pinch if it's going to change its policies.
Okay, Mr. Hafid, I have to stop it there. Unfortunately, we ran out of our time. We have to leave it there. We have come to the end of our panel discussion. I would like to thank each of our panelists. Thank you very much for all your valuable insights and analysis. And I would like to thank our audience, wherever they happen to be, for taking their time to watch this event. We are hoping to meet you at future events. Goodbye.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.